Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be opportunities to ask questions during today's call. To ask a question at that time, please press star then 1. Today's conference is being recorded. If you do have any objections, you may wish to disconnect at this time. I'll now turn the meeting over to Ms. Linda Abbruzzese. Ma'am, you may begin.
Thank you, and good afternoon for those of you joining on the East Coast, and also good afternoon for those of you joining on the West Coast. Thank you very much for joining us for our webinar on the U.S.-Canada Regulatory Cooperation Council Small Business Lens. My name is Linda Abbruzzese, and I'm a Senior International Trade Specialist for the Global Knowledge Center at the Department of Commerce, and this webinar is being brought to you in cooperation by the U.S. Commercial Service and the Market Access and Compliance Offices, as well as Small Business Administration and Business USA. In a moment, I'll turn this presentation over to Timothy Lord, who is the Canada Desk Officer for the North and Central America and the Caribbean Office. Also joining me today is Justin Hatmaker, who's the social media lead from BusinessUSA.gov. And also I have Sarah Bresselin, who's Assistant Chief Counsel of Small Business Administration. These will be our main speakers today, and they will go over these opportunities that exist for U.S. companies for Canada. But before I begin, I just would like to go over a few housekeeping details so that you get the most benefit from today's webinar. During this webinar, you'll be able to hear this presentation via your telephone and view it simultaneously via your computer. So if you're not hooked up to both, please take a moment to do this. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please press star 0 anytime during this presentation. Now, during this webinar, we will be taking voice and written questions. Now, to ask a voice question, please press star 1 on your telephone. We do invite you to type in questions on your screen as they occur to you during this presentation. On the upper left-hand side, there is an icon on the top of the page with the letters Q&A, which stands for questions and answers. When you click on this icon, you can click and type in your question anytime during this presentation. What we will do is we will compile all these questions and present as many as time allows during this webinar. And any type questions which are not answered during this webinar due to time constraints, we will try to get back to you via an email after the webinar. And just as a reminder, for those of you who just joined us, you can still log in on the internet as well as the telephone. And also we do have, and we'll have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation slides for you after the webinar, and we will have this recorded so we can also provide you a recording of this webinar. So now I'd like to introduce live online the Canada Desk Officer for the Office of North and Central America and the Caribbean, Timothy Lord. Thank you, Tim, for joining us.
Thanks very much, Linda. So I'd also like to thank everyone for being here, and I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar. So, today, as you know, we're going to be learning about the RCC and the Small Business Lens. So this is going to include a discussion of business.usa.gov, and there's also going to be a special emphasis on rulemakings and the regulations that result from rulemakings. So we hope that you're gonna learn a lot of things from this, and we also hope that we can find out some things from you on how to better help serve you. We also hope that maybe you can feel empowered, knowing that you can influence the process and how regulations come about so that they don't unduly harm your business. So just for a little bit of background on the RCC. So it was announced by Prime Minister Harper and President Obama back in 2011. And it was basically created by the governments of the U.S. and Canada with an eye on aligning regulations in certain areas and creating platforms for communication between regulatory agencies on both sides to make sure that when regulations are being crafted in the future, that they're sort of aligned from the get-go, so that conflict isn't automatically built into a regulation as it's made. And really, the whole rationale for this is that where there's alignment, it's going to promote commerce between the U.S. and Canada, simply because it's easier to trade across the border. So to just give a little bit more of a breakdown here, so the RCC is composed of 29 initiatives, we call them, which are under 4 kind of key areas or sectors. So there's agriculture and food, health and consumer products, transportation, the environment, and then we've got 2 kind of cross-cutting, cross-sectoral initiatives, nanotechnology and the small business lens, which is what we are. So you can find out really anything you want to about the RCC, including a lot more detailed sort of history of it, kind of its foundational documents. You can get things like updates that related to the RCC, information on the different initiatives, who leads the different working groups. Really everything RCC that you'd want to know, you can get from trade.gov/RCC. That's actually a site hosted by the Department of Commerce, which is where I am. So I'm fairly familiar with it, and also kind of gives you some contact information in case you should ever have some questions for me or any of the other working group leads. So the RCC, as you know, or as you've seen, it's been in existence since 2011. So it's fairly new, but we've still definitely had some good concrete accomplishments. So there's a couple of the big ones was that there was an agreement on vehicle safety standards related to shoulder belts in the rear center seat, which is somewhat of a big deal in the automotive industry, being that it's such a huge component of the commerce between the U.S. and Canada, especially on the northern border. There's also, FDA and Health Canada's first simultaneous review and approval of a veterinary drug, which, has fairly big implications for things like, the mutual recognition of basically regulatory practices when it comes to medicines, and, just even the sharing of data. So that kind of brings us to the small business lens, which is basically, I'll just kind of read out the purpose here and then, give it in plain English. But, the set, quoted purpose is to reduce the regulatory burden on small businesses by developing tools and provisions that better integrate small business considerations in the design of regulations. So, what does that mean? Basically, we just want to make sure that when, regulations are being designed on both sides of the border, we want to make sure that they're not unduly burdensome to you and your business. So, part of that is we want to be able to get out these informations about, rulemakings, proposed rulemakings, proposed regulations, basically, so that you can, find out about these things. And, more importantly, we want to get your feedback to know, what is it about this proposed regulation that might harm your business? What is something that you would want us to know about this? So that's really, what the small business lens is all about. So the work plan of the small business lens, and this goes for the work plan of all the different 29 initiatives under the RCC. It's carved up into various deliverables based on certain units of time. So deliverables meaning just basically goals that we have for ourselves for things that we want to get out there. So the looking at the 3 to 6 month deliverables, which are kind of the first set, we just want to make sure that related to the small business lens that each side is very familiar with what's going on. So Canada has published the small business lens, which is I should note that there's a bit of a difference in when we're talking about the small business lens in the Canadian perspective. It's actually something that was put out by the Canadian government as a tool that makes them take into account the impacts the proposed regulations might have on small businesses. So it's obviously very similar to the small business lens sort of collaborative exercise between the U.S. and Canada and the RCC. But it's that collaborative exercise is basically taking its name from this new tool that the Canadian government is using specifically with Canadians in sort of formulating its own regulations. So I just wanted to get that out there first, just as a clarification. So in this 3 to 6 months, besides the the Canadians just kind of getting out there, the small business lens, it's also just basically entailing on both sides, the U.S. and Canada becoming familiar with what each side does when it comes to, letting stakeholders, particularly small businesses, know about rulemakings, what goes into, developing regulations. So for the next, sort of step in the 3 to 6 months deliverables, as I was saying before, the U.S. and Canada are going to, meet with each other, and the officials are kind of, going to explain what each side does. So the Canadians briefed U.S. officials on the small business lens, and the U.S. officials briefed Canadian officials on the Regulatory Flexibility Act, which is something in the U.S. that's similar to the Canadian small business lens, which just requires federal agencies to analyze the impact of proposed regulations on small firms. And we also discussed the President's January 18th, 2011 memo on regulatory flexibility, small business, and job creation, which just emphasizes that federal agencies, need to justify their decisions not to provide flexibility for small businesses when it comes to making regulations. And as I said at the beginning, we're going to be talking about BusinessUSA.gov, which I'm going to hand over to Justin Hatmaker here in just a little bit. But that's also part of the deliverables in this first tranche here. Was that BusinessUSA.gov is going to be adding new features and content, which it has done, and it's really cool. So I look forward to Justin talking about that here in just a few seconds. For kind of the next set of deliverables, so the Canadian U.S. officials met once before to kind of discuss the different tools that each side has and is developing, and again they sort of met as a continuation, sort of as a progress update, and that brings us to the deliverables at 12 to 18 months. So, which is, that's currently where we are. So this sort of brings us to why we're having the webinar, because we're wanting to identify new and innovative ways to help small businesses find rulemakings with international impacts and to engage in the rulemaking process. So, part of the reason for this webinar is that, not only do we want to convey to you how you can find out this information, but more importantly, we want to find out how we can better serve you, to get you this information. So, that's, you're obviously going to be helping us in figuring out these sort of new and cool ways to help you get this information. So, I'm going to highlight here more than at any other place that, you the stakeholders, the small businesses, are really, the crucial part of this work plan. So, I'm especially glad that those of you who could make it were able to attend this webinar today. So beyond 18 months, while we still are in the 12 to 18 month phase technically, we still have been, kind of moving forward. So at this current juncture, it's basically time for us to figure out, where we're going and, how we're going to be using the various kind of tools that we've been coming up with to, create this, or make sure that there's kind of this true alignment in the future between the U.S. and Canada. So, more importantly, obviously is how can we make sure that businesses on both sides of the border are affected in the smallest way possible. before I kind of pass the football off to Justin here, we just got a little bit of a poll, which I think Linda will be helping us out with here. So basically, we just want to ask you, so how do you find out about proposed rulemakings and rulemaking? So how do you find out about regulations when they're at the very beginning stage of just kind of being bandied about, when they're at the rulemaking stage? How do you find out about them? So the first, A is, you find out about them from checking sites like BusinessUSA.gov, reginfo.gov, or the Federal Register, all of which are going to be discussed later, in case you're wondering. Or, B, you find them from, say maybe your local trade organization or an industry group. Or C, you don't find out about rulemakings or proposed rulemakings until after they become regulations, until, it's too late, so to speak. So, I'm just going to give you, I guess, a little bit of time to answer that. And I think while you are, I don't know, Linda, should I just pass it on to Justin?
Yeah, I mean, the polls are open, so we'll give you a couple of minutes to just choose your answer on your screen, and then we'll close it in a couple minutes. And then, yes, Justin can begin his presentation if you'd like. Okay, so I just closed the polls right now, and we can begin with Justin. But it looks like 37% find out about, or 50% find out more about proposed rulemaking through the trade organizations or industry groups, which is your highest percentage.
Interesting.
Yeah, and 37% they find out about proposed rulemaking through regulations.gov, reginfo.gov, or the Federal Register, and of course the least amount or least option that they find out about proposed rulemakings is until after they have become regulations. So thank you very much for your votes, and we'll turn it over to Justin.
All right, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I want to thank you all for having me today. I will try to be brief today, but I do want to get a little bit into kind of a little background on Business USA, as well as kind of what our kind of main goal is, what we try to accomplish, how our site works, and some of the new things that we've been working on. So for those of you that aren't aware of the history of Business USA, a little less than 2 years ago, the President announced formation of a no wrong door approach for business owners and those entrepreneurs looking to start a business to have easier access to government programs that help business development and exporting. There are, I don't even know how many federal government agencies that have programs that help people that are starting a business or looking to expand their business, find financing, find training programs, find other resources that can help them improve their businesses. I like to use an example from where I'm originally from in the government with the Department of Agriculture. Most people don't know that the Department of Agriculture has programs that help individuals start businesses in rural parts of the country. And since most folks don't know about that, they wouldn't necessarily know to go to the USDA website when they're trying to find financing for their business. So what we've created in a very short turnaround, I think we first launched the first version of the site in February of 2012, if I'm not mistaken. We've come a long way since, but we've created basically a portal for folks to go to. Instead of going to every different government agency's website to find information about programs that could help them, they could go to Business USA and try to hone in on a variety of programs that might fit their needs. So as you can see on this slide, it's just a screenshot of our homepage right now. Back when it started, it looked a lot different. But what we have as our basic jumping off point with Business USA are these 10, well actually now it's 12 tiles that are subject-based. They are meant to walk users through a process of narrowing down what it is they're looking for. So, for example, the upper leftmost tile is start a business. If you're looking to start a business and you need either help with finding financing or getting information about regulations, or if you're looking for events that are being put on that will help you start your business, you would go through there. And what these tiles will do is have the user answer a series of questions, basically. They'll, input their zip code to say where they are, which will help them hone in on local resources. It'll ask them what type of industry they're looking to start a business in, if they are maybe a minority or a woman business owner, things like that will help them drill down to hopefully a final result of a number of different programs that could help them accomplish what they're looking to do. We have a variety of other tiles here that help with exporting, financing specifically. We've got disaster assistance. We've got a tile that is meant to help keep business owners understand the new healthcare laws, veterans resources, all these different subject-based tiles that will take users through the process of narrowing it down, like I said, to find those government programs that might help them. There are a couple other things on our site that are meant to help users. You can enter your zip code and just find everything that's going on near you. You can browse events directly and just see if there are training sessions or seminars happening near you. You can also access our knowledge base, ask a question. What else? There's a link to 1-800-FED-INFO, which is a phone number they could call to get answers over the phone if they're not finding what they need in the website. So that's basically Business USA in a nutshell. Some of the new things we've got going on, we actually just released a new version of our site. We added 2 new subject-based tiles, the Help with Hiring Employees and Invest in USA tiles. These are 2 tiles that are meant to help employers with their hiring needs, finding training programs, learning how to retain employees and find better employees. And then Invest in USA is a tile that will help businesses invest in USA, whether foreign or domestic, bringing their operations to the USA. We've also added some improvements to a couple of our other tiles. The Veterans Disaster Assistance and Expand Exporting tiles were just improved to add better filters. So when people want to expand their exporting operations, there's a better set of questions that will help them drill down to what they're looking for. And then in the Start a Business tile, we added a new Size Up tool, which just fits right in with the questions that were already being answered in that tile, but it allows individuals to compare other businesses in the area that they're looking to start theirs. So if you're looking to start, a machine shop in your neighborhood, you can see other machine shops that already exist. You can see, how they do. You can find out what your suppliers are, things like that. Other things we've recently, I would say in the past couple months, we've introduced a site tour. So if you don't know anything about Business USA, it'll walk you through kind of what we're all about. You can, we've enhancements to the Start a Business, find opportunities, access financing, and begin exporting tiles. These are all the changes that I talked about, like with the Veterans and Disaster Assistance. We added new filters and better ways for them to find information. We've added a persistent frame, which basically, because Business USA just compiles information from other government websites, when you find a program with, let's say, the Small Business Administration, you will eventually end up at the Small Business Administration website. But what we wanted to be able to do is provide users a way to get back to Business USA if that's not exactly what they're looking for. So when you do go to that external website, it takes a frame with you so you can go right back to Business USA when you're done. And then we've added those, like I said, the question, feedback, and knowledge base options on the side. We've recently, I guess I'll toot my own horn on this one, increased our social media presence. We are very active on Twitter. I encourage everyone to follow us. We are BizUSA on Twitter. We've recently got into LinkedIn as well, which is a bit of a less active platform for us, but we're trying to increase our presence there. We're also starting to ramp up our email activity, newsletters and announcements, things like that, and same thing with our blog. We have a blog right now that kind of takes our partner agencies and takes their blog posts and advertises them, but we're trying to produce original blog posts as well. So that's all I have prepared for you. I don't know if we want to do questions later or if we're doing questions now, but that's all I've got.
Okay, we have our next speaker, which is Sarah.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Linda. I'm delighted to be here speaking this afternoon. Also, I'd like to thank everybody that's on the phone and on the web with us. I work for the Small Business Administration in the Office of Advocacy.
Hey there. Sorry to interrupt, but is anyone else having trouble hearing Sarah, or is that just me?
No, Sarah, if you could just speak up a little bit more, that'd be great.
Okay, is this better? Can you hear me better now?
Much better.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I work with the Office of Advocacy, and we're an independent office within the federal government that advances the views and concerns of small businesses before Congress, the White House, and our federal government partners. Tim gave a really good explanation about the current phase that we're in right now, which is the 12 to 18-month deliverables. So I'm going to skip to the next screen. So for the implementation of this phase, we are reaching out to small businesses in webinars, and we're conducting meetings and stakeholder sessions to find better ways to involve small businesses in the rulemaking process. So when we're talking about the rulemaking process, we really mean the stage where small businesses can have the most impact. And this is because this is, the time when the agency is actually deciding what the content of the regulations are going to be. So this is pre-regulation. This is when you can submit comments and have a real impact. And so as Tim did mention, we are specifically looking at ways that small businesses can become aware of rulemakings with international impacts. So those would be probably most interesting to you if they're going to affect your trade with other countries, and then also find new ways for small businesses to engage in the rulemaking process. And so, I'm really interesting to see your poll. A lot of you get your information from your trade associations. That's certainly a lot of my experience with working with a lot of small businesses is through the trade associations, but it's also great to hear directly from the small businesses. So what is an international impact? So this is going to be a rulemaking that will affect international trade and investment, or also a rulemaking that will affect the interest of one of the United States' international trading partners. So I had three examples at the bottom of the slide, and I'm going to take a look at the formaldehyde emission standards for composite wood products. So this was actually just published by the Environmental Protection Agency on Monday. There is currently an open comment period until August 9th. In this rulemaking, EPA is setting new standards, emission standards for composite wood products that are being manufactured, imported, and sold in the United States. So this will have an effect on international trade because any manufacturer in the world who wants to export panels or finished goods containing composite wood products to the United States must comply with these standards and also be certified by a third party. Just for a second example, if we look at the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, this is a rulemaking that's actually currently under review, so it's not yet published, but will be published in near future. And this is from the Department of Health and Human Services and the Food and Drug Administration. And this actually requires that each importer have a foreign supplier verification program that will provide assurances that the supplier produces food in compliance with U.S. standards. So this is this is a good idea. We want to be importing food that are up to our standards. However, it might have impacts on our foreign trading partners. It may increase the cost and administrative burdens on foreign companies that are exporting to the United States. So moving to the next slide, ways that you can find rulemakings on your own. So besides looking or getting information from your trade association, if you look on the left side of the screen at you can search reginfo.gov, and this is the website of the Office of Management and Budget's Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, and this is the office that reviews rulemakings that are economically significant. So any rulemaking that is going to have an impact of more than $100 million on the U.S. economy in a given year has to go out for public notice and comment. So you can go onto this website and you can search in this little box. You can type in any industry or word that your business might be associated with, and it will bring up all rulemakings that are currently under review. If your rulemaking isn't economically significant, then you can search the unified agenda down here, and you would search that by agency. So if you know there's an agency that frequently promulgates regulations that would affect your business, so if you're working in chemicals or maybe pesticides and the Environmental Protection Agency requires that pesticides are registered, then you can check the unified agenda for the Environmental Protection Agency to see if there are any upcoming or planned rulemakings related to pesticides. So then if you go over to the right side of the screen, this is the Federal Register, and this is where actually the rulemakings are published for your review, and you can also search the Federal Register by citation, by agency, and by topic. And just this is the Federal Register from a couple of days ago, and you can see that there were 10 proposed rulemakings in that Federal Register that day. So just moving along to the next slide. You can also get notified in several other ways by signing up to email listservs from many agencies. I'm talking a lot about the EPA because I work with the EPA a lot, but I myself have signed up for a lot of the EPA email blasts, and the EPA has some great blasts. You can sign up with regard to the office that you'd be interested in, whether it's air, water, or waste. And if you look 3 bullet points down, this is a shameless plug for my own office, but we have regulatory alerts. We have 12 attorneys in my office that work with small businesses, and we put out alerts when there's an open comment period or anything that we think might be of interest to our small business stakeholders. So there are a couple of ways, well actually there are many ways that small businesses can participate, and I would like to echo what Tim said in the beginning. It's really important that your voices are heard, and that's what my whole job is. So we have next week, we have an RCC stakeholder meeting that will be on June 20th. And in the morning, there's a plenary session. There's going to be a stakeholder and a government panel. And in the afternoon, there will actually be a chance for stakeholders to present before government officials who are currently working on the RCC about their issues and concerns, and most importantly, what they want to see the RCC do going forward. So you can sign up if you would like to participate. It's the website that Tim had at the beginning of the presentation, which is www.trade.gov/RCC/. And then on the right side, you'll see you can also submit comments and participate in public hearings and public comment sessions, and this would be on the rulemaking side. And it really does help improve federal regulations when small businesses participate, because agencies often don't know how their rulemakings are going to impact small businesses until they hear from small businesses. So if you are interested in submitting comments, you can go to this website, which is BusinessUSA.gov. You can search this website in that search bar right there using a keyword. For example, I typed in chicken, and I found several rulemakings that were taking comments, including a draft risk assessment on listeria in retail delicatessens. Also, you can also see the rules that aren't the rulemakings that aren't open for a comment period. Maybe the comment period is closed, but you can see what everyone else has commented on. You can still see all of the documents, and then it gives you a really good sense of what the agency might be doing, and then you can still contact the agency and try to meet with the agency even if you didn't have a chance to submit public comments during the during this comment period. And I think that's all I had, and here's the contact information for the three of us. And just move right on to the questions and comments. And as Tim said, this is part of our outreach for the Small Business Lens, and we're really interested in knowing how it would be easier for you to get information on rulemakings that would impact you. And so you can go to reginfo.gov and the Federal Register and an agency's website and the email blast. But besides that, we'd be interested in knowing whether there are any other ways.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. Now we'll go to our Q&A session. Once again, if you have a voice question, please press *1, and the operator will attend to you first. And if you do have a written question, please put in your written question on the upper left-hand side of your screen. There's letters with Q&A, and we will also look at those as well for questions. So once again, if you have a voice question, please press *1, and I'll turn it over to the operator.
Thank you. Please press star, then 1 if you do have a question at this time. One moment, please. *1 to ask your question. We're still waiting for the first audio question.
And I just want to also just say that this is a great opportunity to ask a voice question because we have all of these speakers and experts right here at the same time. So they add a certain type of energy and expertise when you do it live like this. And I would highly recommend that you ask a voice question because they're here and they have the time to answer your specific questions. And, if you do think of a question later on, we can always get back to you. But I just want to make sure that you guys get the most value out of this webinar. So if you have a voice question, I would ask it during this time.
We do have a question that comes from Roger Nasif. Your line is open.
I just wanted to see that the slide before this, the contact information. That was my first question.
I have it right there for you.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I had trouble connecting when we started, so I didn't know who was who.
Okay, yeah, and we will have PowerPoint presentation slides from this webinar available to you, as well as the net replay and the recording.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Sure, of course.
I manufacture heart monitors, EKG machines, and we're inspected regularly by FDA, and they have stricter requirements than the 1345 pretty much that we've actually harmonized with, the latest version with FDA. Why do we have to get inspected again before going into Canada by yet a different organization? And is that changing?
You are this is Sarah speaking, you are a U.S. company?
Yes, I manufacture here in the U.S.
Okay, and you had mentioned that some requirements had just been harmonized with some other requirements?
Yeah, we're inspected by FDA, which is, harmonized with 1345, the main manufacturing, inspection regime. We've got to have everything in place here to track products, all that kind of thing. The same exact standard is used in Canada, but we have to get totally different inspectors to come in. They do not accept the FDA inspection of 1345.
Okay.
So my question is what does anyone have any information of when that's going to be harmonized instead of getting inspected for the same thing twice? It's just double payment each time.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes. Sarah, you can. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Sarah. You can go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I think that's a really excellent example of a way where we can find alignment between Canada and the U.S. So while I don't have any information about that kind of information is important to us, and we can go back and take this to the RCC and start looking at ways that we can find for these kind of alignments. But this is information that working in the government that we wouldn't know, so it's important to hear from small businesses about this. And if you want to follow up with an email to anybody, well, you're welcome to send it to me, or Tim might also be interested. We could follow up on your behalf.
Yeah, please do, and that's something that I'd really be eager to do just to kind of convey your situation and let those at OMB sort of know what's going on, and hopefully this is something that we can use in discussions for kind of future iterations of the RCC, and maybe who knows, there could even be an initiative or a work plan related to regulations for medical devices. So I think the more information we get from you, the better.
All right, I'll send emails.
Okay, great.
And I know there's some harmonization going on. There's an attempt to do it, but it's really, really slow moving. And I think they just get together, have a meeting once a year, and we should do something. But they don't do anything.
Right.
It's a connection between Canada, United States, Australia, and I think Brazil. I think those are the four main players. It's not with Europe yet,
mm-hmm.
which has the same standards, but they want, for some reason, it's all separated. I don't understand why we're inspected for the same thing multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Sabina. Your line is open.
Hello, this is Sabina. We are a U.S. corporation and work in the railroad industry. We have a situation that, for example, being asked to do a product demonstration in Canada or just one-day work assignment, the administrative hurdles for just a very short assignment, as I say, 1 day or a 2-day for a demonstration, are quite elaborate. Work visa, or even for a demonstration 102 waiver, and having the employee getting an ITIN number. Is there any initiative to ease that and allow, let's say, short-term assignments without major requirements? I saw an initiative, a recommendation by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, but that was not implemented in the 2013 budget.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is a lot of talk between the U.S. and Canada in making it easier for business travelers to cross the border. There is provisions in the NAFTA for temporary entry of certain professionals doing certain activities. In which case you don't need a visa, but I take it that's something that you've researched and your company is not able to take advantage of?
For a product demonstration, I believe we don't need a visa, but still there is the 102 waiver requirement and requirement for the U.S. employees to get a tax number.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It still seems to be the case, and there is some waiting time associated with that, which delays then our contact with the Canadian company. Is frustrating for our Canadian potential customers that they have to wait for us to take action.
Yeah, and that's the facilitation of cross-border trade and travel is a big part of this. And I don't know how familiar you are with the U.S.-Canada Beyond the Border initiative, but this it talks much more about things like customs facilitation and things like that. So I'd be happy to to get you some information about that, you know, after the webinar here. But you know, that is something that, you know, in the RCC context, you know, that's something that could be addressed. But you know, it's really when it comes to, you know, border crossings and things like that that are not necessarily like regulation specific. That's something that's really, you know, would probably be more specific to the Beyond the Border initiative, but it's still very applicable to what you're talking about. So I'd like to get you that information.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Once again, if you do have an audio question, please press star then 1.
While we're waiting for another voice question, I do have a written question here from Louis Gregg. And the question is, current legislation will invoke a burden on transporters and shipper suppliers when they implement the legislation requiring formal customs entries for vessels returning to the United States empty but not purged. The argument is this argument for safety? Any hazardous material should be duly marked with the hazard. This will this be somewhat of a burden to all involved, including CBP, when this is going on, I guess?
Well, I can say that, you know, that is not my area of expertise. But what I can say is that the small business lens, you know, its sort of ultimate intent is that regulators on the U.S. and the Canadian side, you know, not only are we kind of going through these beginning stages where we want to get the information out to small businesses about, you know, regulations that could impact them, and also get, you know, information from them, but we also want to open up channels between ourselves in the U.S. and Canada, so that, you know, when we're, you know, putting out regulations, that, you know, while we're taking into account, you know, how they would impact our own small businesses, we also kind of take into account what is, you know, an applicable regulation in Canada, so that if we're slightly tweaking a particular regulation, that it's not different than what it is in Canada, so that we're not, you know, putting something out there from the get-go that's you know, misaligned, you know, because ideally, if we've got these good, you know, channels of communication between ourselves and the Canadian regulators, we can say, well, you know, we're being sensitive to the needs of our small businesses, and at the same time, we're also making sure that this regulation isn't completely inconsistent with Canada, so that, you know, there's going to be a hold up at the border. So, you know, I think that if the small business lens, you know, I think when it gets more ingrained, you know, the communication between regulators, I would think that the, you know, that the problem that this gentleman was talking about would, you know, happen, you know, far less frequently.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Sure.
I show no audio questions.
Okay. I'm still looking for some written questions. I don't see any more as well, so if there are no more audio or voice questions, we'll conclude this webinar. I just would like everyone to please note once again the contact information that's on your screen. If you have questions that come to you after this webinar, please note the contact information, and you will be able to have your voices heard and your questions answered. Also, I just wanted to let everyone know you can find a lot of information about this topic and also about other webinars and trade events and exporting terminology on the website www.export.gov. And as I've learned today, there's also www.export.gov/RCC for more information on that topic. So please check out that website. I would like to thank our main speakers for today. Thank you, Tim and Justin, as well as Sarah. I appreciate your guys' experience and your time for today's webinar. And of course, I'd like to thank all of our participants for joining us. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
This does conclude today's conference. Thank you for joining us. You may disconnect at this time.